No, judges don't like Mackenzie friends. Some of them really don't like them, which, if you think about it, is a bit like a magician not liking people who look too closely. Interesting, isn't it? Think about it. Because a great man once said, and this man was literally an emperor, so he had options. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." I'll come back to that. First, a brief history of how family court works. You go through the worst experience of your life. The state gets involved. You're handed a stack of documents in a legal language that like you've never spoken, told to respond within 21 days. And then if you're lucky, really lucky, someone mentions almost in passing that you're allowed to bring someone in with you for support, almost in passing, not on a leaflet, not from your solicitor, definitely not from the court. That someone is a Mackenzie friend. That's right, a Mackenzie friend. And the fact that they're the best kept secret in family law tells you almost everything you need to know about family law and family courts in England and Wales. Everything you need to know. See, the level playing field, isn't it? Right? So level playing field, no, it's not, is it? Here's what a Mackenzie friend actually is. They're not a barrister, right? They're not, obviously, they're not a barrister. They're not a solicitor, clearly not a solicitor. They can't stand up and address the court in most cases for you. Not in all cases, yeah? But what they can do is sit next to you. That's not all. Take notes, quietly advise you, and help you keep your composure when the other side's barrister, who charges more per hour than your monthly mortgage, is staring down at you. Someone once said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. That's easy to say. They've never had a CAFCAS officer file a report on you, but the point stands, because that calm, prepared presence beside you, it changes the energy in the room. Judges notice it. And some of them, not all of them, but some visibly bristle, which brings us to the question as to why. Now, they know things you're not supposed to know. And here's the uncomfortable truth that, and I say this with no aggression or no malice, nothing like that, just for clarity, right? There is an entire industry, solicitors, barristers, Mackenzie friends, critics, that functions best when you don't know what you're doing. Family court thrives because you don't know what you're doing. And no one's going to come out with a song sheet and a to-do list and do it for you. That's the thing. This industry runs on confused clients, confused men mainly, confused client bills, confused clients that can bill more hours. Frightened men make worse decisions. And men who've never heard of a practice direction or position statement are far easier to manage than men who have a good Mackenzie friend, someone's good, someone who's been through it themselves, someone who's read the guidance, who knows a procedural error when they see one, someone who studied law and is waiting for his results. They can quietly remove the advantage that having a solicitor can bring you. Another great man, I can't remember his name now, but he did write something along the lines of, no man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. Your adversity is the system. Your Mackenzie friend is proof that you showed up ready. And some people in that room would genuinely prefer you hadn't. If you're in the middle of it right now, you want to know that we're here, Elliot and Dad's Network community of men who have navigated exactly what you're dealing with. There's a links below in the comments below, and the link below in the description. That's what it is in this description. Yeah, there's no hard sell, no pitch, stuff like that. Just the links down there if you want to have a look at it. Anyway, carry on. So look, the resistance is the signal, right? So sometimes, and this happens, a judge will push back on your Mackenzie friend. Literally push back. No reason. Question their suitability. Make things slightly awkward. I don't understand this. Sometimes something about that moment is not a threat. It's not a threat because it's not a threat at all. It's a tell, absolute tell. Think about it like this. If a Mackenzie friend genuinely made no difference, if they were, as some people suggest, just a bit of moral holding for the emotionally fragile, nobody would care. You could bring a golden retriever. The resistance exists because the tool works. The guidance from the president of the family division is clear. R-E-H. Look it up. R-E-H. Re-H. Where you want to say it. What stands in the way becomes the way. Remember that. What stands in the way becomes the way. So the strategy. Let's be practical. Not every Mackenzie friend is good. Some of them are brilliant. Some of them are angry men with laptops and a grudge, which is understandable. but not useful at all inside the courtroom at all. So what you want is someone with preparation, restraint, and clarity. The stoic, as it were, someone who's been through it, someone who's been through the system and come out the other side without setting anything on fire that's still on fire now. That composure, that studied calm is not a weakness. It's not passivity. It is, as someone would tell you, the only thing you actually control in that room. You can't control what the judge thinks. You can't control what the judge thinks of you before you walk in. You can't control whether you walk in prepared. You can't control other things, but you can control that. Let me leave you with this. Bellabell's things. Did you ever notice that family court system doesn't explode? It doesn't shout. It doesn't slam doors. No. It calmly, politely Bellabell's things. Everything is measured. Everything is reasonable. Everything is in the best interest of the child until you realize the person raising the concern somehow becomes the concern. That's the trick. That's the moment everything flips. You start here. I'm worried about the children. This isn't safe. Something's not right. Clear, simple, protective. And then, slowly, almost invisibly, it turns into you're creating conflict. You're escalating. You're unable to move forward. Flip, just like that. The person pointing at the fire becomes the problem, mentioning the smoke. And from there, the system does something very subtle. It stops asking, are the children safe? And starts asking, why is this parent so difficult? Now, the focus has shifted, not onto behavior, not onto risk, but onto tone, presentation, compliance. Because here's an uncomfortable truth. The system prefers a calm, wrong answer over a chaotic, uncomfortable, correct answer. So if you keep pushing, if you keep saying, no, this doesn't add up, you risk being labeled not as the protective, but as the problematic. And once that label sticks, everything you say gets filtered through it consistently afterwards. So every concern becomes another example of conflict. Meanwhile, the original issue, the reason you spoke up in the first place, that starts to fade into the background. And the children, the actual children involved, the ones at the center of all of this, are still living it. They're still living that same fear, that same concern. They're still learning from it. They're still absorbing what normal looks like. But the system is now busy managing you. So let's talk about the part no one wants to say out loud. There are patterns, not rules, patterns. And sometimes those patterns feel like this. Protection becomes selective, not by design, not written down anywhere, but in practice. It can feel like one parent is more readily seen as needing protection, and the other is more readily seen as needing scrutiny. And when that happens, when that perception sets in, everything else starts to feel uneven, because then you get contradictions on situation, strict thresholds, courses, restrictions, proof required, another situation, ongoing concerns, ongoing exposure, and yet more access. And the question isn't anger, it's confusion. How can both of these be true? How can at the same time? That's what breaks people, not losing. No. Not even disagreements, but inconsistency. Because if the rules change depending on who you are, then they're not really rules, they're interpretations. And interpretations, they depend on the person holding the pen. Now here's the part that really stings this bit. While all of this is happening, while labels are shifting, while narratives are forming, while professionals are managing risk on paper, the children are still in the environment that triggered the concern in the first place. Nothing's resolved, just reframed. And that's where people start to feel like they're going mad, because they can see it, they can feel it. But every time they try and point to it, they get told, you're the issue. So now you're trapped in a double bind. Say nothing, the situation continues. Say something, you become the problem. That's not a system people trust. That's a system people survive. So what do? You stay controlled, you document everything, you separate emotion from evidence. You challenge, but precisely, not loudly. Smarter, not loudly. You don't have to agree with them. You don't have to. Because at the moment you lose control, the label writes itself. And whether anyone admits it or not, once you're labeled in this system, you don't just argue your case anymore. You argue against the version of you they've already decided you are, if that makes sense. And that's a much harder fight, much harder. Stand it now. We get it. We understand. We understand that the family court doesn't shout, doesn't explode. We know that. It doesn't slam the doors. We get it. No, we understand it calmly, politely, just ruins things. Everything is measured. Everything is reasonable until you look a little closer and realize no one can actually explain what's going on. Because here's the part that messes with your head. The rules exist. They write them down. They publish them. They train people on them. Practice Direction 12J, safeguarding frameworks, risk assessments, all very official, very, very official, all very reassuring. And then the reality walks in and the rules start bending like they've got somewhere better to be. You've got one parent who does something wrong, owns it, gets told, no contact, go do your courses, prove you're safe to be around children. Fair enough. Makes sense. Consequences, structure, accountability. Fine. Then somewhere else in the same situation, you've got a situation where there's ongoing chaos, ongoing conflict. Kids see things they shouldn't see. And somehow, the answer is let's increase contact. And that's the moment your brain goes, well, hang on a minute. Because now it's not about agreeing or disagreeing, it's about consistency and the complete lack of it. And when this is where the system starts to feel not evil, that would be easier, confused, professionally confused, really confused, because it likes categories, victim, perpetrator. That's nice and tidy. But real life isn't nice and tidy, is it? Real life doesn't care about nice and tidy at all. You can be a victim in one relationship and harmful in another. That's not rare. That's human psychology. Trauma doesn't turn people into angels. It just changes the shape of the damage. And when the system can't process that, it hesitates, it drifts, it makes decisions that don't quite line up with its own rules. Meanwhile, the children they're not reading policy documents, they're watching, they're learning, absorbing, and what they see becomes normal, not because they choose it, but because no one shows them anything different. Now, here's the part that no one warns you about. If you're a parent trying to challenge this, you walk into a trap. Option 1, you stay quiet, agree, keep peace. Maybe you stay in the system's good books. Maybe you get to see your kids, but you're swallowing things you don't believe are right. Option 2, you push back. You say, no, that doesn't make sense. And suddenly you're difficult. You're the difficult one. You're conflict driven. You're not child focused. So now you're not just dealing with the situation, you're managing how you're perceived inside it. And all of it, like I say, leads to one quiet, uncomfortable question. If the rules are the same, why don't the outcomes feel the same? That's the question that keeps people up at night. Not anger, not even frustration, just how that slow creeping thought. Am I going mad, or is this just not adding up? The worst part, sometimes there isn't even a clean answer because the system isn't always corrupt, but it is human, which means inconsistent, risk averse, and occasionally blind to its own contradiction. And when you're on the receiving end of that, it doesn't feel like procedure, it feels personal. So what do? You stay sharp, you document everything, you challenge carefully, delicately with love, and you pick your moments. You don't lose control, even when everything in you wants to. Because in this system, control isn't just power, it's survival. And whether anyone likes it or not, that's the game you're playing. The system, like most systems, runs smoothly when people don't ask questions, don't bring up help, and don't know their rights. A Mackenzie friend is a quiet, legal, entirely legitimate way of saying, I know what I'm doing here. Some people hate that. And good. I think that's important. As I say, if I'd had a more difficult divorce, the thing that offends the most is that you're not supposed to know that. So stay prepared, stay clear, and stay standing. And bring your Mackenzie friend.